ready to dive into a crypto project that wants to change how we move digital assets.
Sounds intriguing. What are we looking at today?
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the AXL ecosystem, specifically their white paper.
Ah, the white paper. Like a technical blueprint, but for crypto, right?
Exactly. And while they can be, well, let's just say a bit dense,
Yeah, dense is a good word.
they're packed with clues about a project's potential. So we're here to decode AXL's roadmap, make sense of the jargon, and give you, the listener, the insights to decide if AXL is worth your attention.
Sounds like a plan. So, what's the big idea behind AXL? What are they trying to solve?
Imagine this. You want to move your crypto between different blockchains, say from Ethereum to Binance Smart Chain, seamlessly, effortlessly.
Okay, I'm following. That's something a lot of crypto holders would love to do without jumping through hoops.
Exactly. And that's the future AXL is building towards.
Ambitious, but from a technical standpoint, how are they aiming to achieve this? Their white paper must delve into the nuts and bolts.
It does, and they kick things off by tackling a fundamental challenge, the choice between centralized and decentralized exchanges.
The age-old debate. Control versus freedom. It's a trade-off.
It's like choosing between a traditional bank, where you have some security but play by their rules,
Right. Familiar, but maybe not as much control.
versus a bustling marketplace, where you have more autonomy but also more risk.
I like that analogy. Centralized exchanges offer familiarity. Decentralized exchanges promise more control. So where does AXL fit in?
Well, AXL wants to blend these approaches, leveraging something called the Poly Network Bridge.
Okay, the poly network bridge. This is where it gets interesting, right?
This is where it gets technical. Can you break it down for us? How does this bridge allow for moving assets between blockchains?
Think of it like this. It's a protocol, a kind of language that allows different blockchains to communicate and interact with each other.
So it's facilitating a conversation between blockchains that normally wouldn't be able to understand each other.
That's a great way to put it. And in AXL's case, this bridge, this communication line, specifically facilitates the transfer of tokens and data between Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain.
And that opens up a world of possibilities for users, right?
Absolutely. Potentially lower fees, faster transactions, and most importantly, the ability to access different blockchains without jumping through hoops.
That sounds pretty groundbreaking if they can pull it off.
It's certainly an ambitious goal. And interoperability, well, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to AXL's vision.
Right. Their white paper lays out an entire ecosystem with features like an NFT marketplace, staking, even lending and borrowing.
Wow, so they're not just aiming to be another exchange, they're going for a full-fledged ecosystem. Ambitious indeed.
It's a pretty impressive roadmap. And speaking of exciting possibilities, let's talk about staking.
Staking, that's always a hot topic in the crypto world. What's AXL's take on it?
Their white paper really emphasizes staking as a way to engage with the AXL network, almost like becoming a mini shareholder.
Interesting. And for good reason, right? With most staking programs, you're essentially locking up your tokens to help validate transactions and secure the network.
Exactly. And in return, you earn rewards, like
Mhm.
earning interest on a savings account. But instead of a bank, you're actively participating in a blockchain network.
I see. So what's unique about AXL's approach to staking?
Well, from what I gathered in their white paper, they're aiming for a higher than average staking reward rate compared to other similar projects.
Oh, now that definitely catches my attention. Higher rewards for securing the network. That could be a significant incentive for users.
It certainly sounds tempting. But AXL doesn't stop there. They also mention lending and borrowing within their ecosystem.
Now, lending and borrowing in the crypto space, that always comes with its own set of considerations.
Absolutely. While it can be a way to potentially grow your crypto holdings, their white paper is pretty upfront about the risks involved.
As they should be. Crypto markets are notoriously volatile.
Exactly. Just like with traditional lending, there's always that risk of borrowers defaulting.
So it's a proceed with caution situation.
Absolutely. It seems we're starting to get a good grasp on this AXL ecosystem. We've got this innovative approach to interoperability, intriguing staking mechanisms, and a suite of features like lending and borrowing that come with their own risk-reward profiles. But before we get into the potential risks, let's take a closer look at the AXL token itself. What makes it tick?
That's a great question. It's one thing to have all these features and functionalities, but the underlying token, that's what ultimately drives value in a crypto project.
Exactly. And this is where tokenomics come in. Luckily, AXL's white paper provides a breakdown of how these tokens are allocated.
Okay, so token allocation, this is essentially understanding how the pie is divided and who gets what right.
Precisely. They mention a pre-sale, staking rewards, allocations for development and partnerships, and more.
Right, all essential elements for any crypto project. Are there any key takeaways from this breakdown that particularly stood out to you?
Well, one thing that caught my eye is their emphasis on a fair distribution. A significant chunk of the tokens is allocated to community-driven initiatives like those staking rewards we talked about, as well as ecosystem development.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is, at least on paper, by allocating a good portion to the community. That does suggest they're genuinely interested in building a decentralized and community-owned platform.
And they are pretty vocal about this concept of buybacks and burns, which on the surface sounds almost counterintuitive.
You're burning your tokens. Why would you do that? It does seem a bit counterintuitive.
Right. But it's a strategy some projects use to potentially increase the value of a token.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
Imagine AXL periodically buying back a portion of its tokens from the market, and then they just destroy them permanently, effectively reducing the total supply.
So it's like a controlled reduction in supply. And with a fixed supply, like AXL has, that reduction could make the remaining tokens more valuable over time.
Exactly. They've stated that there's a fixed supply of 100 billion AXL tokens.
So buybacks and burns, it's like a controlled deflationary pressure on the token. Interesting strategy.
It is. But of course, that's just one aspect of their tokenomics. There are other factors to consider, especially when it comes to risks. And believe me, every investment, especially in the crypto world, has its downsides.
Risks, those are always important to consider.
And you know what? AXL actually dedicates a significant portion of their white paper to outlining those risks, which I have to appreciate. Transparency is key in this space.
I agree. Acknowledging the risks is just as important as highlighting the potential rewards.
Exactly. So stay tuned as we uncover the risks AXL doesn't want you to miss right after this. We're back and ready to dive into those risks, right?
Let's do it. Transparency is key, and it sounds like AXL is at least acknowledging that there are risks involved.
They definitely are. And one phrase that really stood out to me was hacking and security concerns.
Yeah, that's something you can never completely eliminate in the crypto space, even with the promise of blockchain technology.
It's a good reminder that vulnerabilities exist,
Yeah.
and they rightfully emphasize that ultimately your security is your responsibility.
Absolutely. Strong, unique passwords, two-factor authentication, being wary of phishing attempts. Those are just basic hygiene in the crypto world.
It's like having a strong vault, but leaving the key under the welcome mat.
Exactly. And another risk factor they highlight is the whole regulatory landscape surrounding cryptocurrencies, or rather, the lack of a clear one.
It's uncharted territory in a lot of ways, which can be exciting, but you really need to be prepared for the unexpected. What kind of specific regulatory challenges does AXL foresee?
Well, they talk about how the rules and regulations around cryptocurrencies are constantly evolving.
So what's allowed today might be restricted tomorrow.
Exactly. And they also acknowledge that because there aren't clear regulatory frameworks in certain jurisdictions yet, that could pose challenges for them and for their users down the line.
So it's a bit of a proceed with caution situation for now, especially for anyone new to the crypto space. They also mention something interesting: the risk of corporate defamation impacting AXL's value.
Ah, yes, that's a fascinating point. It just goes to show how much reputation and perception can impact a cryptocurrency's value, even if the rumors are unfounded.
So it's not just about market forces, it's about public opinion too.
Precisely. Negative press, rumors, even a single tweet or news article can send ripples through the market and potentially tank a project.
It's the age of social media, information or misinformation spreads like wildfire.
That's right. So it underscores the importance of doing your research, consulting reputable sources, and really understanding what you're getting into before investing in any cryptocurrency.
Due diligence is essential. Okay, so we've got security risks, regulatory uncertainty, the potential impact of negative publicity. Any other red flags AXL is urging us to be aware of?
Well, they emphasize the inherent volatility of the cryptocurrency market as a whole.
It's a wild ride sometimes.
It's say the least. And they're very clear about the fact that AXL's value can fluctuate significantly and that investors should be prepared for potential losses.
It's the high-risk, high-reward nature of the crypto world. Not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. But for those who are still intrigued by AXL, even after hearing about these risks, they do provide a step-by-step guide on how to buy their tokens.
Yeah, they outline the whole process in the white paper. It usually involves setting up a compatible digital wallet, like MetaMask, for example, and then acquiring AXL tokens through a platform that lists them.
Which, and they're very transparent about this, They're launching initially through a pre-sale.
Okay, a pre-sale. So for listeners who want to get in early, it sounds like they'll need to do a little more digging.
Exactly. Delve deeper into their website, check their official communications, maybe even join their community channels to learn more about the specifics of the pre-sale and how to participate.
And this is important, folks. Let me reiterate, this is not financial advice.
Not at all. This deep dive, this is for informational purposes only.
Any investment decisions need to be made after doing your own thorough research and maybe even consulting with a financial advisor.
Always good to have a second opinion, especially in the crypto space. Okay, we've covered the risks, but there's one more thing in AXL's white paper that really caught my eye. Governance.
Oh, yes, governance. That's a big one.
Yeah.
What's their take on it?
Well, they talk about a system where, get this, AXL token holders will have a say in the project's future.
Interesting. That's becoming more and more common in the crypto space, this idea of decentralized governance.
It sounds incredibly empowering, giving the community a voice.
Right. It's like putting the power back in the hands of the token holders, which aligns with the whole ethos of decentralization.
So it's like a democracy, but for a crypto project. But how would that actually work in practice? What could token holders potentially have a say in? We'll be back to discuss this right after this. So we were talking about ASL's approach to governance, and I have to say, the idea of token holders having a real say in the project's future is pretty exciting.
It's definitely a big step towards decentralization, giving the community a voice, a stake in how things evolve. But the big question is, how will it actually work in practice?
Right. Their white paper outlines a system where token holders can submit proposals, and then those proposals are put to a vote.
It sounds like a direct democracy, but for a crypto project. That's the idea, right?
Exactly. But the details, things like voting thresholds, how much influence each token holds, those are still being ironed out, it seems.
Okay, so there's still some fine-tuning to be done. But let's say, hypothetically, I'm an AXL token holder. What kind of things could I potentially have a say in? What kind of power does this governance model offer?
Well, imagine having a direct say in which blockchain's AXL prioritizes for interoperability next, or maybe even proposing new features for their NFT marketplace.
Okay, now we're talking. That level of influence, that's real power, especially in a decentralized ecosystem like they're building.
And it's not just about adding features. Token holders could potentially weigh in on things like how staking rewards are distributed or how the project's treasury is managed.
Now, that's interesting. It really makes you think about the potential impact, the responsibility even, of being a token holder in a system like this.
It's a whole new level of engagement. But let's be realistic for a second. One voice, even with a decent amount of tokens, in what's likely to be a global community of holders, does it really make a difference?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, the white paper doesn't quite delve into those specifics. Like, how do they plan to balance individual influence with the needs of the overall ecosystem?
Right, that's a key detail they haven't fully addressed yet.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on as they release more information.
So the potential is there, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out in reality. It seems like with AXL, there's a lot to be excited about: innovative technology, a focus on community, and this whole governance experiment.
It's still early days for them, but they're clearly aiming high, which is always exciting to see in this space.
It is.
Yeah.
But we also need to remember that there are risks. As with any investment, especially in the crypto world, security concerns, regulatory uncertainty, market volatility, those are all factors to consider.
Absolutely. Don't forget that corporate defamation aspect they highlighted. Reputation matters, perhaps now more than ever.
Exactly. It's a lot to process.
It is, which is why it's so important to do your research. Don't just take our word for it, or anyone's word for that matter.
Read their white paper, dig deeper into their claims, and most importantly, never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Well said.
This deep dive was just the starting point. Hopefully it's given you a good overview of AXL, their vision, their technology, and the potential risks and rewards.
And hopefully it sparked your curiosity to learn more. The crypto world is constantly evolving, and projects like AXL are pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So stay informed, stay curious, and as always, happy diving.